Please let me know if there is a sound. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ahmed Abu ElDahab, and today, inshallah ta'ala, we will do Flutter study, online Flutter study jam. This is my first ever time on YouTube live, so sorry for if there is any mistakes or something going wrong with us. I wish also my connection will be good with us. I think, inshallah, the screen is appear in front of all of you, and feel free anytime to check the slides that I'll provide or I'll use through my talk. The link is in the description of the live. Also, today, first, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ahmed Abu ElDahab. I'm a Google developer expert from Egypt, and this is my social accounts, Dahab Dev everywhere. You are free to contact me on these accounts. Especially, I'm using Twitter. Most of other accounts, I'm not using it too much. Sorry if there is some noise around me because there's people are working in the same building. So let's get started. This is our online Flutter study jam. This study jam will continue for 3 hours, inshallah ta'ala, and it will be in English. If you are interested in the Arabic version, after 2 days, we will do the same Flutter study jam, but in Arabic. Today we'll do it in English. This Flutter study jam will start with from 30 to 40 minutes introducing Flutter and explaining the different technologies available for building mobile application. And this is very important as an entrance or intro to mobile development world. And after that, we'll dive into Flutter programming and start our first Flutter application. Feel free anytime to tweet about this Flutter study jam on these hashtags that are available in the screen below. And let's get started. The magic of Flutter, write once, run everywhere. Before we start talking about how to build mobile application for Flutter, we need to understand first the operating system that we are building our application for. And any operating system consists of set of layers. Every layer or each layer responsible for a specific job. The lower layer usually is responsible for kernel and hardware drivers that communicate with the hardware driver or hardware devices that included on the device. The next layer or the higher level layer, mainly it will be the operating system itself layer, which is the core operating system. And the higher layer is the media layer, which is responsible for multimedia like camera, playing audio or video, etc. The most important layer and the layer I need everyone to focus on is the OEM widget layer or the user interface layer. OEM widget is the original user interface widget system that the company who built this operating system said, I am following these principles or I am following this design language. This design language for in Google case is material design, which Google tried to make it general design language, not only specific for mobile. There is a material design for web. There is material design for mobile. And if you are a web developer, you will find that a lot of components or a lot of things that how to build a material design website. On the other side, Apple following Cupertino style guide. Cupertino style guide is the design principles or design language that Apple following for creating application for Mac OS or tvOS or iOS. Why I'm saying that? If you asked me, I am a developer, why I'll care about material design or Cupertino style? The answer even if you are a developer or a designer, a lot of these material design component or a lot of these components, you will find its names exactly in your code. So you need to have awareness about what's available and what's a component available for you that helps you to build this application. If you want to read more about material design, go to material.io, and you will find that there is the principle, the rules that you need to follow when you are developing application or website. Even if you are a developer or a designer, you will find two tabs, developer and designer tab. And also for Cupertino style, you will check developers.apple.com, and you will find theming guide or user interface guidelines for Apple, and you will find this Cupertino style guide. And even in Flutter, on our case, we will talk about Flutter. Flutter named this component, or in Flutter case, we are naming it widgets, and we will know more about it later, inshallah. These widgets have two main categories: material design widgets and Cupertino style widgets. Okay? So the question now, if there is one way to develop mobile application, or there is a lot of ways to develop mobile application. Mainly, there is two ways to develop application for mobile. The first way, or the first approach, or the first method, we are calling it single platform. And the other method called cross-platform. What single platform mean, or native approach mean, or native application development means? It means you are checking the operating system that you are building your application for and using the same language that used to build this operating system, and using the same language to develop your application. And why we are naming it, or are calling it single platform? Because if you are used this approach, you will develop your application for one operating system only. It will not, for example, if you use the Kotlin or Java, your application will run only on Android. On the other side, a lot of companies start using cross-platform approach, which allows you to build application using single code base for the two different or more than one platform, 2 or 3 or 4 different platforms. What I need you to know about the cross-platform development approach, there is 2 types of applications that you can get from cross-platform development approach. The first type, we are naming it, or we are calling it hybrid application, which means it's based on web view, and we will know more about it later. And the other type is native application. So the question now, what's the difference between the native application that we are getting from using a cross-platform tool and the native application here from the left side that we are getting if we are using single platform approach? The main difference between these two types of application is here we are getting iOS and Android application. On the other side, we are getting only one application for one specific platform. If we need to target the other platform, we need to use another language, another platform, another development tool. So let's get started. For native approach or single platform or native development method, you are checking the operating system language. In Android case, you will develop your application using Java or Kotlin. And the question now, if you asked me, I want to start to develop native mobile application for Android, which language I should use, Kotlin or Java? My advice, start with Kotlin, because now Google saying that I have Kotlin first support, and there is a lot of SDKs and a lot of lessons now talking about Kotlin using Android, and a lot of new features that not available before when we are using Java. So if you want to develop native application for Android, start with Kotlin. On the other side, if you want to develop application for Apple, you can use Swift or Objective-C. And the question also, which language I should use? The answer is Swift. Why Swift? Because Swift is the new language that Apple built, and now we have more support. And Objective-C, still there is a support for Objective-C, but it's better. Use Swift. It's better language. It gives you better performance, and its syntax better than Objective-C. Now, if you want to develop mobile application for native mobile application for Android, start with Kotlin. And if you want to develop for iOS, start with Swift. And your application or your code lives inside a virtual machine. This virtual machine responsible for translating or compiling or transferring your code or the intermediate language to the native language or the native machine code. We are calling it 0 and 1. And your application will be run here. And there is another part on the screen, the elements or the component that appear in front of the user, which is the user interface, and we are calling it OEM widget system, the original user interface system for the operating system itself. And here we wrote the Cupertino style and material design. If I use this approach, what's the benefits of using native application approach for developing application? First one, you have full support because you are using the same language that the operating system used. Next thing is full support for any hardware, and you are communicating with the operating system directly for the same reason, because you are using the same language. And you have a great performance because you are using the native language that the operating system using. And the fourth thing, you are using the same or the original user interface that the operating system using. What does this mean? It means that anyone who don't know anything about your application or used it for the first time, he will find your application familiar because you are using the same principle or the same UI that the operating system used. Everyone, if you are using iOS or are using Android, you will find that most of the applications shares almost 70 or 60% of your application are shared between all applications. Like when you are using app bar or you are using menu, it's the same. So when you are using native approach or native application method to develop your application, you will have a great performance. You will use the original user interface widget system, and you have full support because you are using the language that the operating system used. So what's the problems of using this approach? The main problem here, if you need to develop Android and iOS application at the same time, you need to use two different language, two different platform, two different IDEs for developing your application. You are duplicating everything twice. And sometimes that will cost you time and also will cost you money. So after this approach, there is a new way. A lot of companies came with it. Why you are not using one code and try to get application for any platform we need? This cross-platform approach, a lot of famous companies use, like Adobe using build PhoneGap tool, and Google built Flutter, and Microsoft also start with Xamarin, and Facebook React Native. And this is NativeScript Progress company. This is a new company that acquired NativeScript. Most of these companies are now using cross-platform approach. Now, the question now, if I asked anyone, Microsoft or Facebook or Google can't bring the best native Android developer all over the world and ask them to develop native application with Kotlin or Java, they can pay for them. But why, or even Microsoft or Facebook or any other company, but why they use this approach to develop some of their application? Because it's a big headache maintaining two different platforms, two different teams, two different operating system, two different language, two different IDEs, and especially Facebook when they came with React Native tool to build their application for Facebook application, they said that the same engineer who built the website and he already knows React.js, he will build the Facebook application using React Native. So before mobile, what the developer was doing? We are building at the time. We was building we were building web applications and desktop application. And anyone starts with web application. Which language that we are starting learning when we start our journey with web application development? It's JavaScript and HTML and CSS. Anyone who start learning web development, he starts with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, because it's very easy to start and it's very easy to get a result quickly with no time. There is an open source project called Apache Cordova project. Said that why you are not allowing anyone who knows HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build a mobile application. After that, Adobe with PhoneGap, Adobe acquired PhoneGap startup and added more feature for this approach. And there is a lot of frameworks that using the same approach, like Ionic, for example, using the same approach. How this approach works? You are writing your code using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And do you remember the OEM widget system here, this OEM widget system? They removed it and replaced it with WebView. WebView is a small part of your browser. Your browser contains a lot of parts. For example, the address bar, the menu bar, and the storage connection, and the white area that's responsible for displaying the data in front of you is the web view. So they removed the UI system that came with the operating system and replaced it with web view, which we are calling it offline browser. And they are displaying the code you are writing through using JavaScript or HTML or CSS, displaying it inside this web view. So the question now, when I am using this method or using this approach, what's the benefits I can get from this approach? The first one, you are writing one code base or single code base, and you are building for different applications, not only iOS or Android. Sometimes you can using something like Electron or other tools to build desktop application and even export it as a PWA application for web, or even single page SPA application or single page application for web. So you are using a very easy language like JavaScript, HTML, CSS. Anyone can learn, anyone can start with it easily. And you are using one or single code base to build your application, and you are compiling your application for different operating system or different platforms like iOS or Android or desktop or web view. Anytime anyone have a question, please write it, and we will, after I finish my introduction, we'll take 10 minutes break. So I'll answer all questions. Feel free to ask any question in chat, and thank you. So let's continue. What I was saying here, if you use this approach to develop your application, you will have one single code base, and you will write one code base and build for different platforms, and you will use a very easy language. But what's the problems of using this approach? One of the most important thing, performance. Performance is very important for users. So the web view applications or hybrid approach or hybrid application, their performance is lower than the native approach. And another thing, you are losing the experience that the user already have about the operating system. You are not using the OEM widget system of the operating system. The third thing, there is all the time, there is bridge between your code logic and other services. Like if you want to communicate with native service in the application, you had to use this bridge. So the question now, using hybrid approach better or using native application better for developing your application? Which one is better? The answer is it depends. For example, and all the time, I was saying the same answer. If, for example, for this event that will be for 1 week or 2 weeks or even for 1 day, if I want to build mobile application users that will use for 1 week or 1 day, is it logical to use Swift to build native application in 2-3 months? and using Java or Kotlin to build the Android version from this application for another 2 months, and you will take 4 months to build an application that user will use only for 1 day, at this case, it's better to use hybrid or cross-platform technology because it will save your time, save your money, and solve a lot of problems for you. So before choosing the technology, ask yourself before, how much time my user will use my application? What is my application will contain? My application will communicate with background process or background hardware, or will just display some data on the screen. So it depends on your application or your case, and after that, after analysis your application and its case, you can choose the best method for you. And after this approach came, a lot of companies said, why you are not able to use the native OEM widget system here? I had to use Kotlin or Swift to build my application, or drop all of that and use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to build my application. So one of the companies came with a new IDE that was Titanium Accelerator, and I was using this tool at 2010 for building iOS application at that time. They said that we will allow you to use JavaScript, the same language that you know, and it's very easy language to understand. And we will transfer this JavaScript code to the native code. On the same time, there is a lot of users that using Microsoft stack or Microsoft tools like C#. There is a startup called Xamarin said the same thing. Why we are not allowing anyone who knows C# to build their application, a mobile application for iOS and Android, and it's using the same method or same way. You are building your application using C#, and they are compiling your code to the native code. So what's the benefits of using this approach, cross-platform approach, using these two methods? The first one, you are building a native application. Why are you saying native application? Because you are using the native user interface system for the operating system, and your code is compiling for the native language that the operating system use. And the same benefits from the other approach, the hybrid approach, like write once and build anywhere, and maintain one code base, and it will be one team. So the question now, what's the problem of using this approach? The main problem of this approach, all the time, there is SDK, or there is a bridge, or there is a wall between your application and the operating system user interface. Any feature or any new feature that came with the operating system, you are not able to use it until the company who built this tool allows you and build SDK for you to communicate with this widget. So the same question also. Is it good to use this approach, Xamarin, for building application? The answer, it depends. If you are desktop developer and you are building a lot of ERP systems for Windows or any other operating system, you are building, for example, desktop application as an ERP system, I'll say to you, go for Xamarin. You will share more than 80% of your code between the client side and the back end. You already know the language, and you will act faster with the programming language. So there is no one answer for which language or which platform I should use. It depends of your use case and your previous knowledge, what you know before that. After this approach came, and after its problems with using there is a SDK bridge or SDK framework between my code and the user interface widget system, Facebook came with a new tool which called React Native, and it's extend React.js approach that Facebook used to build their Facebook.com website. How it works? You are writing your code using JavaScript, and they are transferring or compiling the UI part of your code to the native OEM widget system of the operating system. And for that reason, we are saying that React Native gives you native application because it's compiled the user interface to the native widget system of the operating system. And there is another part from your application while still running in JavaScript. There is a thread of JavaScript with all the time running in your device. On the other side, there is a Progress Company or native script tool allows you to do the same thing. And in my opinion, native script has a better approach or a better technical things that more than React Native. But if you asked me if I want to use one of these two tools, which one I should use? Should I use React Native or native script? Even I said, in my opinion, native script is better, but I advise you to use React Native. Why React Native? Because better community and bigger community and better library support and a lot of SDKs you will find available for you, like resources to learn this language. So the question now, a lot of people that who came to the programming and the first time they are learning programming, they're asking a wrong question. They are saying, what's the best language that I should learn? Or what's the fastest language I should learn to develop mobile application? Your question is wrong. You should ask yourself before, what's the result I want? What's the target? Should I want to work in a company in my local country or my local city? You have to check first what's the jobs that are available in your country or the place you are targeting, and after that deciding which technology you should use. And the question now, using React Native for developing mobile application better than Xamarin, or Xamarin better, or hybrid application like Ionic or PhoneGap is better? The answer is the same. It depends of your use case. If you are Node.js developer and you are heavily using Node.js at the back end and you are building a lot of application using Node.js every day, I'll say to you, go to React Native because you will able to share a lot of codes between the back end and the client side. So what is the problem here with using this approach when I'm using React Native or native script? The main problem here, there is two threads running in your application. The thread that displays the user interface is the UI thread, and the thread that's running the JavaScript. And the device need to change from this thread or to the other thread, and that effect of some delay of your application. There is a little bit delay if you are using React Native. Maybe you are not feeling that if you are just displaying some data or some text on the screen. Especially now all mobiles or all devices now have 4 GB RAM or 6 GB RAM. So the main problem with using this approach, there's a JavaScript bridge between your code and the OEM widget system or the UI system. After that, Google start thinking how we can change this experience for building mobile application. Google takes its inspiration from mainly from React Native. So if you are a React Native developer, you will find a lot of things that shared between Flutter and React Native. For example, components in React Native is equals to widgets in Flutter. What Google did, the first thing, do you remember the OEM widget system that was here? They removed it, but they didn't replace it with WebView or something else. They moved it or cloned it and create a pre-made widget that has the same interface or the same UI and the same behavior you will find with the native application, but they moved it here. The second thing, one of the main unique features in Flutter, compiling the code to the native ARM binary code, the native ARM architecture binary code. What does this mean? It means that they are combining your code will be machine code. There is no need for booting a virtual machine, and this virtual machine responsible for running your code Java or Kotlin or Swift. In Android case, you need Java, JVM, Java Virtual Machine for running your application. And in iOS case, they are using LLVM, low-level compiler for running Swift and Objective-C. And what does this mean? It means that your application performance will be better because you are compiling to the ARM binary or ARM machine code. What does ARM mean? ARM is architecture that came, new architecture that came maybe last 5 or 6 years or 8 years ago. For example, in desktop or in laptops, there is a lot of space to put a processor, the CPU, and ROM and RAM separates in the device. But in mobile, the distance or the space is limited. So they came with a new approach that we are merging a lot of components with each other, like ROM and RAM, for example, and the CPU for inside one controller. And this approach called ARM architecture. So just consider it a CPU, a new type of CPU or new type of microcontroller, and your code of Flutter are running binary code directly on this approach. And there is a platform channels responsible for communicating with other service. So what's the benefits of using this approach or Flutter approach for building your application? The first thing, Flutter compiling to binary native code, which means you are gaining a high performance application. The second thing, you are using the same looks of the UI interface, the user interface OM widget system for the operating system. You will find widgets for Cupertino style and widgets for material design. So you are gaining the benefits of using the same UI that the user already know about the operating system. The third thing, you are maintaining the same code base for different platforms. So what is the benefits also of using this approach? One of the most important things that Flutter don't care about the operating system at all. We can consider this phrase correct, but Flutter came with its own rendering engine, with its pre-made widget system, and running without any need to communicate or translate or transfer your code to the native UI. For example, if you remember the problem between Google and Huawei, let's problem that about Huawei mobiles. If Huawei came with a new operating system, Flutter don't care. Just we will add support for this operating system inside our engine, and you can compile your application to Huawei new operating system, because Flutter use the same approach that games using. Any games platform or games tools that you are using to build games, they are using the same approach. They have their own widget system or component or UI elements, and has their own engine. In games case, it's a 3D engine. So Flutter use the same approach, and Flutter don't care too much about the operating system. And at the same time, it's giving you the same native experience and the same performance that you are getting from the native development tool. And in some cases, it can be faster more than the native approach, because if you are using Java or Kotlin, your code had to running inside JVM. In Flutter case, your code is binary machine code running directly on the ARM architecture itself. So what's Flutter? Flutter maybe 3 or 5 months ago is we are defining it as SDK mobile framework for building mobile application for web for iOS and Android, and this definition changed. Now Flutter is a portable UI toolkit for building beautiful native application for mobile and web and desktop at the same time. You will use single code base, and you are building or compiling your application to any platform easily. And this tool made by Google. What does this mean? It means that Google already using Flutter for developing their application. Google used Flutter to develop the ads application. the assistant team now using Flutter to build the assistant application for the home screen device. So Flutter allows you to build a beautiful native application, and Flutter focus on how to helps or power your app for developing a native UI or a beautiful user interface application. And at the same time, it gives you a lot of pre-made widgets that helps you you will not say to your designer no. Any design, if you want to follow the native principle or the native UI system, Cupertino style or material design, you will find a widgets that helps you to do that. And even if your designer came with a unique design that not follow the operating system design language, with Flutter, you can do that easily. You can write your application with Flutter and compiling it with, for iOS and Android without caring too much about the operating system itself. And also, Flutter is very fast because it's compiling to binary code. It's using its own rendering engine, and it can run on 60 frames per second. Flutter application, you can build games with Flutter. But in this case, it's 2D games because Flutter use engine called Skaya. We'll talk more about it later, inshallah ta'ala, for rendering the data on the screen. And productive. One of the most important feature, or one of the most important things that I found when I found Flutter at the first time, I can feel how much effort the engineers who built this tool put to save your time and solve a lot of problems you are saving. One of the most important feature in Flutter called hot reload, and we will know more about it, inshallah ta'ala, when we are writing a real code, inshallah. And the other thing, it can hold your state, and also we will talk about it. With Flutter, it will save your time, and maybe 3 times faster than any other tools. For example, maybe after my talk, I'll put a Medium article about someone who built his application with Android, with Java, and after that, rebuilt the application using Flutter, and you will find a huge difference between how much time he takes, how much line of codes he took, how much files in his application, and I'll add this link later, inshallah ta'ala, in the description. So to summarize, what's unique about Flutter? First thing, Flutter compile its code to ARM binary machine code. The second thing, Flutter doesn't rely on the operating system itself. What does this mean? It means that you can force your application to work like iOS on Android device, and also the opposite of it. You can force your application to work like Android on the on iOS. And not even that, you can give your users the ability to choose which type of behavior I want my application to act. And the third thing, there is no bridge between the UI layer and my binary machine code. And what does this mean? It means you will gaining a great performance between the user interface, the elements that the user are clicking on it, and the business logic behind this element. The fourth thing, and that thing was a little bit new, Flutter, if we ask it now, which markup language that we are using to develop web application? The answer is HTML. And when they came to mobile, which markup language they used to build the mobile application? The answer is XML. And you find there is a problem here. You are describing the UI with a language and using another language to writing your application business logic. You are describing the UI with XML and using Java or Kotlin or Swift to write your application. And this is a little bit problem, and you will face some problems with when you are using testing, and you are not getting the full feature of using fully programming language for describing the UI. In React Native case, they tried to mix between XML and JavaScript and try to control the XML code through JavaScript, and they made something called JSX. So JSX is mixing between JavaScript and XML and HTML. In Flutter case, it's only one language for describing the UI and the same language for writing your business application logic. So you'll only use one language for everything. And this language has a lot of features. If you know Dart before 2013 or before 2015, Dart is another language after 2015. Dart at 2013 introduced as a JavaScript replacement. At that time, it has only Jet compiler. And after 2015, Dart now has the two type of compiler. Jet compiler, just-in-time compiling, which means that you are compiling the file at the same time when are using use. For example, if you are using a scripting language like PHP or Python for web, you are using the Jet compiler because when you are writing the URL for PHP page, the compiler are compiling this PHP code and send it to the browser as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. On the other side, there is another two type of compiling called ahead of time compiling, AFT compiler, which means that they are compiling your code to the native or the machine code or runtime code for the platform you want to compiling it. For example, you are writing your code in Java or C# or C or any other language, and you are compiling it to executable type. In Flutter case, Dart has the two types. When you are developing your application, it uses the Jet compiler that allows, which gives you a hot reload and give you high productivity when you are building your application. And when you are finishing your application and try to deploy the application, build the IDE file or build the EBK file, it's using the ahead of time compiling to compile it ARM native machine code. Okay. On the other side, there is another part added to Dart called Dart Dev Compiler or DDC, which means that they are compiling Dart language to JavaScript or Dart to JS compiler. There is an intermediate language called kernel, which is the intermediate language between the Dart language and the other interface. You are through Dart Dev Compiler, you are combining your code from Dart to a JavaScript code. So let's see how Flutter architecture. Flutter based on layers. Each layers or each part depends on the other part. The lower layer is the engine that's responsible for compiling things and running the main things that you need in your application. It's written in C++, and we know that C or C++ have a great performance for developing application. And also it uses Scala engine, which the best open source 2D engine that Chrome used in their browser. Firefox using Scala in their browser, even Android using Scala to render canvas and render object on the screen. And you have the Dart compiler or the Dart VM that's responsible for compiling the Dart language, and they import the text engine from Chrome to Flutter, because already the text engine, they will not reinvent the wheel again, and the text engine already supports a lot of language, supports Arabic and English, Chinese, any other language has a great support for it. So this is the main engine that's responsible for running your application, and anything else is written in Dart. Even the animation, the things that you are using on screen, even the UI elements, the material design or the Cupertino style, everything written in Dart. What does this mean? It means that you can change anything by extending the class, and you can override the default functionality. When they came to web, they kept the Dart part as it is, and they only used the C++ engine that the browser using, and to compile this code to JavaScript and HTML DOM elements. So they are replacing the Scala, using the Scala. It's already using behind the scenes, it's the same SKA engine because Chrome based on SKA. So the JavaScript engine you are responsible for running JavaScript code, and the DOM elements that describe your HTML or your DOM tree, and the canvas which is responsible for painting things in front of you. And you are using the same layer for Dart side. And there is a lot of lessons you will find online about how to change your application from mobile to web, and maybe inshallah ta'ala we can make advanced series of sessions about this sort of things. So which language is Flutter using? Flutter used Dart. Dart, which is a client-side optimized language that allows you to build a native application for any platform. In web case, you can compile it to JavaScript and running it in any browser. In desktop, you are combining it to native UI layer of the operating system. For example, if you are using Linux or Windows or Mac, you are combining your application as a native application. You are not using Rubber to run your application like Electron or other technologies that allows you to use your mobile code, your mobile application code for building desktop. In a Flutter case, it gives you native experience and native application. And also, it has its own package management system. And this package management system is built also by Google. Why this is important for us as developers? For example, if you are using Node.js or if you are using PHP, in my case, because I was a PHP developer for more than 16 years, we came with Composer, which is package management system for PHP, but it's made by the community. It's not built by the same company who built the language. In Flutter case or in Dart case, the package management systems that built that Google built is pub.dev. We are calling it pub, and you will find it pub.dev. The old domain for it, pub.dartlang.org, but this is a new domain now. Everything is .dev extension. And now, if you want to check this package management system, which allows you to share code between you and other developers, allows you to build a modular code, and you can reuse your code again easily. We are using pub, which built also by Google. Dart has its own virtual machine. What does this mean? It means that you can compile to any platform. If you have the virtual machine, you can compile your application to work on desktop or in web. In web case, you can use Dart language as like PHP for building back-end application. And there is Dart for back-end and Angular Dart for client side. There is a lot of frameworks like Angel and many frameworks that you can use to build back-end application with Dart, and it gives you a lot of great performance, in my opinion, more better than Node.js or even PHP from performance perspective. And maybe, inshallah ta'ala, if we have some time, we can make a series of videos about it. And the last thing, we have Dart2JS compiler, which allows you to compile the Dart code to JavaScript. But Dart here has a unique feature better than other solutions that available allows you to compile to JavaScript. For example, if anyone knows TypeScript or CoffeeScript or any other tools that allows you to write in a specific language and compiling it to vanilla JavaScript code. In TypeScript case, you are writing in TypeScript or CoffeeScript, and you are compiling TypeScript or CoffeeScript code to JavaScript. In Dart case, there is a unique feature called tree shaking. Tree shaking means that it checks your code and it checks if there is any element or any variable or any library that you are not using in your code and removing it inside your code. For that reason, the JavaScript code that you are getting from Dart is better than JavaScript code you are getting from TypeScript or CoffeeScript. So even if you are a JavaScript developer and need to build a high quality application with JavaScript, Dart will be the best choice for you. And also, There is a new operating system that Google maybe introduced in 1 or 2 years. We don't know a specific date for that. This operating system, the UI layer of this operating system, which is called Google Fuchsia. Google Fuchsia used Dart to build the UI layer or the user interface layer. So if you are using Flutter now to build your application for iOS and Android, your application will run now on iOS and Android, and at the same time, it will run also on the new operating system that not comes yet. There is a lot of big companies now using Flutter, and this is a small example of these companies like Google, Alibaba. Alibaba using a lot of Dart in backend and also using Flutter for building their application. As we can see here, on the left side, there is an example for how to write a simple box. Where this is HTML code and CSS. We use 2 different language or 2 different contexts to build one simple box. In Flutter case, there is no another language. It's only one language. And this language is predictable. It's very easy to learn. It's very easy to understand. And you will find it exactly simple English words. For example, even if you don't know anything about programming, you will find the word text style, font weight, font family, and font size. You'll find these definitions of these words are familiar to you. And in Flutter case, you are using only one language. We are calling it declarative UI. And this is the same concept that now the native companies or the companies behind the native operating system or behind iOS and Android now start to thinking with. I think in May, Apple Developer Conference, Apple introduced Swift UI, which used the same concept that Flutter introduced 3 years ago. And now we have more benefits than Swift UI or Jet Compose because Flutter now is stable. Flutter 1.5 now, we are stable. We have a lot of widgets, but Swift UI or any other technology still in alpha or beta. So all the companies now try to think exactly the same like Flutter thought in 3 years ago. And if you are a native developer and want to develop native application using Swift, you will find Swift UI very good choice for you and give you a lot of feature like hot reload that Flutter provide. On the same time, Android engineers came with the same idea, and even they named it with the same name, widgets, and they said that the main inspiration from Jet Compose came from Vue.js, as I remember, and Flutter, because Flutter who came with this idea. And Flutter inspired, they inspired by React Native when they are trying to mix between XML, CSS, and JavaScript and named it JSX. But Flutter came with a new idea with a pre-made language, Dart, and Dart engineers, the communication between Dart engineers and Flutter team is very, very good communication. During the last year, there is a lot of new feature added to the language, after Flutter developers or Flutter team asked Dart team to do that. So for Flutter, we are saying everything is a widget. Widgets everywhere. You will find widgets everywhere inside your application, and we will talk more about it later, inshallah ta'ala. When we are talking about widgets, from UI perspective is a small element or a component or a small piece of code that appears on front of the screen. And this UI widgets has two types only. The first type is a stateless widget, and the second type is a stateful widget. What does we mean about stateless and stateful? I need to, in simple words, stateless means dataless, has no data, or there is no data that this widget is responsible for. Stateful means there is data inside this widget or inside this class. Stateful means data full. For example, if you want to display something static, you will use stateless widget to display that. And if you want to build dynamic data, You will use a stateful widget, and we will talk more about the difference between stateless and stateful widget when we are writing our code, inshallah ta'ala. When you are thinking about Flutter, I need to remember this slide. Consider Flutter like boxes, every box inside the other box. Flutter follow hierarchical order, which means there is a root widget, and there is inside it another widgets and children widgets inside it, etc. There is a main widget called My App, for example, which is a normal class, and there is inside it another widget called Material App widget. And if you want to use Cupertino style, there is Cupertino App widget, and there is a scaffold widget, and there is a widget for everything. Even if you want to center your text on the screen, there is a widget called Center. For that reason, we are saying everything is a widget in Flutter. To summarize, Flutter allows you to build a great native, beautiful application for your application. And this is Flutter Gallery app, which available and open source in GitHub. And we can add its link on, inshallah ta'ala, description later. And if you want to check what's the widgets that Flutter has, or pre-made widgets that are available for you, you can check this link. You will find a lot of widgets that helps you or power your application to build native, beautiful application. For hot reload, as we can see here, there is a word called click. We change it to tab and press hot reload. This word change directly in less than 1 second. If you are using native method or native approach like Xcode or Android, if there is a lot of Android developers now are hearing me, you are waiting for 3 or 5 minutes until you are seeing these changes on the screen. 5 minutes or 3 minutes in other tools case equals 1 second in Flutter. Flutter will save your life, save your time. If you are building application using Java or Kotlin in 3 months, you will build the same application in less than 1 month. If you are building application in 1 week, you will build the same application in 1 day. And there is something called state, and we'll talk more about it when we are writing our code. With Flutter, there is no imagination. As we can see here, this is iOS behavior. And we will allow the user to go to the menu and use, I need my application to behave like Android. The bounds that appear in iOS now doesn't appear. And with Flutter, even you can give the freedom of choice to your user to use Android or iOS behavior. Debugging is very important. People that are using Web Inspector to inspect elements on the browser like Chrome or Firefox or any other browser, Flutter gives you the same ability. You can track any element on the screen, just press activate the widget inspector and go to your emulator or simulator and click on any specific widget, and you will find Flutter go to the widgets that responsible, and you clicked on the screen, and it will go to the code that responsible for this widget. Not only that, Flutter Inspector now available for web, and you can getting the same experience when you are using web, and we can give more example about that later, inshallah ta'ala. The most important command I need you to know, after installing Flutter, you had to run Flutter Doctor command. Flutter Doctor checks your computer and it checks Java version and Android Studio version, and if there is any problems with your IDE or your plugins, you need to write in your terminal Flutter Doctor to make sure that everything is working fine here. And anytime you want to, if you want to upgrade the Flutter, just write Flutter upgrade. When we are talking about testing, testing is very important. Many tools gives you one way of testing. For example, unit testing, or 2 ways like unit testing and integration testing. With Flutter, you are getting 3 types of testing. Unit testing, the same testing that you know before if you are a developer, and widget testing, you can simulate the user behavior or the user, it looks exactly a human who is using your application, and you can write code that click on a specific widget or specific button. and get the result from this widget. And also there is integration testing. For more information for CI or CD or integration testing, just go to this URL, Flutter Dev Docs /testing to get your application. To install Flutter available on Linux and Windows and Mac. Just go to this URL and follow the instructions that appears. When someone asking about the IDE support, the native support from Google or the default support from Google is Android Studio and IntelliJ. It has the same feature, and everything came to Android Studio. You will find it exactly in IntelliJ. And there is a Visual Studio Code, my preferred editor, and I use it through our study jam today, inshallah ta'ala, because it gives you better performance. Even I already know that a lot of Google developers or Flutter developers inside Google using Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code plugin for Flutter is very good one. If you need to check showcase or already made application with Flutter, you can go to Flutter Dev Showcase or our community website. It's all widgets website. You will find a lot of applications that build with Flutter. You can install it in your application. Many of these applications, some of these applications are open source. You can find that, you will find the source code available. And as we can see here, Flutter can allows you or power your application whatever it types. You are building voice recording application, analytical application, or e-commerce application, or even video application, or any sort of application. You will find applications that build using Flutter, and you can easily find them in this two websites. It's allwidgets.com and Flutter.io showcase. Flutter is a Google family. What does this mean? It means that the compatibility between Flutter and other Google technology, Flutter has first-class support in material design, and also the compatibility between Flutter and Firebase. There is a great communication and great compatibility between Flutter and Firebase, and also for Google Cloud, because Flutter is a Google family. If you want to start building your application now, there is 3 or 4 ways to do that. Start a new application from scratch using Flutter, or if you have already made a project that you already used Java or Kotlin to build your native application, you can use Flutter inside your native application. And at the same time, if you are writing from scratch, you can write native code inside Flutter, and we will talk more about it, inshallah ta'ala, when you are writing real code in the next section of our study jam. Prototyping. If you want to prototype an idea and build user interface quickly, Flutter will be very good for you. Thanks, everyone. I wish my voice was clear and there is no lag with internet connection. We will take a break for 10 minutes, inshallah ta'ala. And during this 10 minutes, you can write your question. And after that, there is no more talks. We will write code from scratch, and you will start your writing your first application. I wish everyone listening to me now installed Flutter and ready to write his first Flutter application. And see you later after 10 minutes, and thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for waiting. 1 second. Yes, this is our slides. Let's minimize it. Please let me know if my sound is clear. So we'll start writing our code with Flutter. And also after I'll finish our CodeLab, maybe first or 2 parts of our Flutter CodeLabs, I'll try to answer any question. So feel free during the next 2 hours or 1.5 hours to ask any question on the chat. And I'm thank you for everyone who tried to answer this question and supporting us. Thanks for everyone. So to start your Flutter application, there is a lot of ways to develop mobile application for Flutter. or to create Flutter application. The first one using Android Studio. If you installed, if you followed the instructions that we already put in chat, you need to install Android Studio and create a virtual device and install Flutter plugin and Dart plugin for Android Studio. And you will find an option here after you did all of that, start a new Flutter project, and it will ask you which type of projects you want, Flutter plugin or package or module or Flutter application. We'll choose Flutter application, and you are writing here your Flutter application, the description and the path for it. And here there is very important option which asks you if you build or if you will use native language in your application, you prefer to use Kotlin for Android and Swift for Objective-C. So it's better to keep it marketed using Kotlin and Swift because it's the new one and has a better support. And here you are writing your application package name and just press finish, and you will continue with your application. This is the first method or the first way of creating your application. The second one, using IntelliJ, you will do the same. You install IntelliJ and install the Flutter plugin. And when you are starting a new Flutter project, you will go to create new project, and from the submenu that will appear, you will choose Flutter. And doing the same here, you can choose Kotlin and Swift or Objective-C for your application. But I'll not use these two editors because my laptop performance is not that good. So I am a terminal guy. So I'll use Terminal and Visual Studio Code for creating application. To create application from Terminal, you need to write Flutter, create and write your application. For example, Flutter study or Jam, for example. Okay. I created my application. It will maybe take 2-3 seconds for creating your application. It depends on your internet connection. Here in my case, it took 5 seconds. So I'll go to inside my application, Flutter _study jam, and I'll start to open this application inside Visual Studio Code. As we can see here, I tried to make Visual Studio Code font sizes bigger because I think it will be better for everyone to see what we are talking about. And here the default Flutter application when we start creating a Flutter application for the first time. As we can see here, there is a folder called Android and another folder called iOS. Android folder contains a native Android application. You will use this folder when you want to add some configuration to your Gradle configuration build, or even if you want to write a native code, Kotlin or Java, you write it inside this folder. On the other hand, in iOS case, there is native Xcode project. You can open it with Xcode, and you can write or add your configuration to this folder. The main folder that your code will live inside it is lib folder, and it has a file called main.dart. It's the entry point of your application. When you start running your application, it will search for the main.dart file and start to display it. If someone asked me, can I change this name? You can change it, and you had to change the configuration inside your editor to tell him, please run this file name instead of main, but I advise you to keep it as main. Here, as we can see here, let's close this one, and here we have main.dart file. We'll start run this application for the first time to display a demo on the screen at the beginning. And let me decrease this one. I don't know if the dark mode is better But if anyone need the light mode, please please let me know if you want to change dark mode to light mode. I think light mode will be better. 1 second. Light. Okay. Visual Studio Lite. I think this one will be better if someone using a mobile device to see our code. And I think font size now is good. As we can see here, the first impression when you are exploring the default Flutter application, you will find a lot of comments here, right? Flutter team does or did a great effort writing a lot of information, a lot of great informations about things, how things going, and describing everything. And we will see that, inshallah ta'ala, by example. If you don't need, there is no need to check. Most of the time, you will not check the online docs for your application. You can getting all of this information inside this code. And let me remove this notes. I'll display this one and replace it and press save to make our application to looks better. And as we said, the entry point for our application is main.dart file, okay? And the entry point for our code is the main method. Main method or function, this is the function that the application go to this method and start run your application. And as you can see here, this is our function. This is new new type of way. If you are returning only one line of code, you can use this arrow function. If you are prefer to use the old way, you can write it inside this way, and it will run without any problem. If we check Flutter, Flutter is library based. Library based means you can merge or combine a lot of classes inside one library. If we check the material library here, as we can see, library material, and you will find a lot of classes responsible for many pre-made widgets that you can using inside Flutter. And how I get to this page, I just clicked Command or Control. Anytime, if you don't know anything about for a specific widget or specific element on the screen, just press Control or Command and press on this widget, and you will find a great information about this widget, and we will see that more by example now, inshallah ta'ala. As we can see here, this is the full application, and we imported the library that we want or that we will using when we are developing our application. And we are using void main here that we are not returning anything. And as we can see here, there is a method called run app, which is responsible for injecting our main app widget inside the canvas or the render object that's responsible to render our application on the screen. And if someone asked me why there is main and after that there is another method called run app, some cases, in many cases, you need sometimes you need to check some user setting inside user, for example, which language the user is using, or which language user is using, or you need to check some security permissions or some important information before running your application. You can write your code here, and even you can write condition here. If this happened, run application. If these things happened, you can display another message that you are not allowed to display application. And here, this is the default application for Flutter. It has a scaffold which is responsible or hold the main elements you need on the screen, like app bar and the canvas area. And here, as we can see, there is a floating action button. If we click on the button, you will find every time we are clicking on the button, the counter will increase one by one. If I want to change this text, you have pushed buttons these times. If I go to this text and change it, you have pushed to you have clicked. And just press save. See how much time it takes to display the new changes on the emulator or the simulator. It's only take less than 1 second. And this is one of the unique features about Flutter. It gives you instant hot reload that send the changes directly to the emulator, because Flutter in this case using the Jet compiler that we explained before in our presentation. Jet compiler allows you, and the virtual machine allows you to see the changes directly. Not only that, remember here, even we changed our widget or our text widget content, the counter not changed or not went to 0, and after that we can apply it. Flutter holds the state of our widget until we ask it or we change this state and ask Flutter to re-render this state. What does this mean, or what's the benefits of that? For example, if you imagine an application that has 3 screens, there is a screen, login screen, and you are writing username and password and press login, and after that you are going to drawer or menu, and from menu you are choosing profile page or display my profile, and inside this profile page you are editing some information. In any other tools, if you are using native Android or native iOS development, every time you are making any change, you had to do the same 3 steps. You go to login and write username and password, and after that press login, and after that go to the menu and go to edit, and it costs you a lot of time. In Flutter case, it holds the state. You will be on the same part you are changing, and you will see the changes directly on the screen. For example, if we added a drawer which allows you to add a menu inside our application, it will appear automatically here. If you made any changes, this menu will not disappear. It will still appears and still running on your application, and any changes you are writing inside this inside this drawer, you will find it appears automatically on the screen, as we can see. When I press save, see, our text appears here. And anytime I want, for example, we will talk more about the code and what we are writing, but I want to give you how holding a state is very, very good in Flutter and save you a lot of time. I wrote a text here, and I can center this text. Just go to press on the widget you want and click this small icon and choose center widget or command dot or control dot. And when I'll center this widget, for example, here, center widget, press enter and press save. We'll explain why this appears this childlike this way later. But as we can see here, there is one very important info I need everyone to know when he started his journey with Flutter. It's better to put comma everywhere after you are finishing, or after any element or any sub methods you are writing. I didn't press save till now, but if I press Command S or Control S, you will find my code now is better. But if I removed the comma from here, it will come again and my code will be in one line. So it's better to write comma after every element when you are writing to the screen. And if and as we can see, even we wrote another widgets, we can convert it to, for example, list view. Sometimes and most of the times, if you want to, okay, I'm sorry, I was writing, this is my mistake. I should center the text widget inside the drawer, and I was centering it inside the app bar. I'm sorry for that. Center widgets, and as I saved here, we'll find my widget appear on the center, and then the menu not closed. And this we are talking about that Flutter holds the state for us until we asking it to re-render it or provide another state. And here, if you want our code to appear better, I'll just write comma here and press Command S. And as we can see here, you will find that our code now is better. Even if we change the logic of our application. For example, this counter, every time I'm clicking on the button, it will increase 1 by 1. Let's increase that by 10. How much? What's the value for this counter? If I click this plus button, let's see, it's increased by 10. Even I changed the logic of my application, Flutter keeps the state as it is until I asked it to change the state or rebuild the whole tree or the tree of widgets that I am using. And for example, if we went to the same to the message that appear here, if I want to change the style for this message, which widget I should use? Which one? Can anyone guess? It's very easy. I want to change the style. It's simple, mean that there will be a method or a property called style that's responsible for changing my style. And this style, I want to change the style for text style. So there is a widget called text style for changing a font or text, any text style. But I want you to not memorize anything. Even if you don't know anything about text style and you don't know how what's the properties inside this widget, just press Command or Control and press on this widget, and you will find all properties inside this widget. You will find color, font size, font weight, and font style inside this widget. Anytime you don't know anything about, for example, you don't know what does stateless mean or stateful, just press Command or Control. You will find that there is a lot of explanation here about widgets and stateful and stateless widget, and we will talk more about this later. We will come back to our example where we are. For text style, I want to change the font size, so I use a property called font size, and I write 40. If you see here, I just wrote 40 without comma after this property. Hello everyone, please, I'm sorry for that. I think I lost the connection, so I had to switch my connection and come back again. I wish everything is now okay. I think we are back now online. I wish we are not losing any important information. And now we give a small example at the first part of our talk. We were running the default Flutter application. We are explaining how to write your application. And from now, we will delete everything, and we will start writing a new Flutter application from the beginning. Please let me know in chat if everything working fine. And here we'll start from beginning. Don't worry, we already started from a blank file. Okay, to recap our last 5 minutes, we were giving example about the default Flutter application, and we will say the same information now when we are building our application from the beginning. So as we said, Flutter is a library based, so we need to import the material library of our application. We imported material library for our application, and now we'll start to write our entry point for our application, which is main method, and the first method responsible for running our application called run app. And we said that we are using run app like this way because sometimes you'll have to write some code or writing if condition here to check something before running your application. In this run app, I write only text widget, and this text widget will hold a text. But if I'm using the text widget directly inside the run app, I had to specify or say which direction I want my text to display inside it. And this is the minimal application with Flutter. I'll press F5 to run my application inside the simulator, and we will wait until my application runs. It starts building my application and compiling the Flutter code to a binary snapshot code and sending it to Xcode to display it. As you can see here, my text appears in this side. So let me add more text. My first Flutter app, for example, my first Flutter app, and press save. If you are using this way, and if you are writing your application inside main method, you are losing the hot reload. any changes you need, you will not appear here until you make hot restart or full restart of your application. When I pressed here on this green button, you will find that the changes that I made appears here. For example, if I want to center this widget, I'll press on this icon or command dot or control dot and choose center and press save. The changes will not appear on the screen until I made a full restart for my application or hot restart for my application. So, and I advise you to not write your application like this way. It's better to extract all of this logic inside another widget. So we'll start with another class called myApp, and inside this myApp, I write my application logic. Why there is a compiler error here inside my application? Because there is no class called or no function or no method called myApp. The compiler don't know about it. And this is very good because Dart has a static analysis. It analyzes your code even before you are compiling it or running it. So as we said before in our presentation, what type of UI widgets available for us in Flutter? There is two types of widgets. The first type is a stateless, which means that has no state, no data or dataless, and the other type is stateful. To write stateless widget, in any editor you are using, if you are using Android Studio or you are using IntelliJ or even Visual Studio Code in my case, I write STL and I'll choose press tab and it will autocomplete the code for me. And I advise you to use autocomplete because it will save you a lot of time and solve a lot of problems when you made mistakes with some spelling mistakes. So I write my class, my class name here, and when I wrote my app, we will find that if you came back, the compiler was here saying that there is a problem. But when I'm writing my application, now there is no error inside my compiler. And when I press a hot restart, now my application running with the new widget that will appear. If I ask someone why there is nothing on the screen, if there is nothing or there is already my app already running on the screen. For example, I don't know if I had child null, maybe I'll mix error in Flutter, but I think Flutter still accept the default value now is null. But if I came here and change its child to, for example, or even remove all of that. Let's remove all of that and return. Do you remember the code that was writing here? I just take it Command S or Control X, sorry, and here is my application. In this case, no need to describe, or this case, we need to describe our application, the direction, because until now we are not using Cupertino style or material design because it comes with default Flutter directional way. And to start our application, to review what we did, we imported the material library package and we wrote our main method. And inside our main method, we are running our application with a stateless widget or a stateless or a class that extends the stateless widget. And we will know more about stateless and stateful now, inshallah ta'ala. And there is a default method inside every Flutter widget, even if you are using stateful or stateless. There is a build method, which is the render object or the rendering tree object responsible for rendering the data on your application, will search this build method. And this is the default method for that the engine will display everything inside this method. And here the first widget we need to more about called material app widget, which the root widget for our application and gives us a lot of pre-made configuration or properties for our home screen, routing, etc. If you don't know anything, I said before, I don't want you to memorize anything. Just press Command or Control on the widget, and you will find that this material app class or material app widget extends or inherits stateful widget, and inside it you will find a lot of properties, home, routes, title, and theme and color. You can use these properties, and you will find a lot of great documentation inside Flutter code that allows you or helps you to develop your application without any need to check the online documentation. Sometimes you will find a full Flutter example or full Flutter code inside this type. We'll come back the required method inside the material app called home, and inside this home we will put again the code that we wrote before, which is inside which widget called center, which is responsible for centering its children on the screen. And inside it there is another widget called text, and as we're saying, everything in Flutter is a widget, center is a widget. If I clicked on center, I'll find that it extends a line, and inside a line you'll find it extended another widget. So everything in Flutter is a widget. And as we can see here, my application not looks like the applications that I found when I am using any application. What we are missing here? We are missing the main widget that's responsible for displaying the app bar or displaying the navigation bar. This widget called scaffold. So if inside my inside the home widget, I'll extract this code again and write scaffold. And inside this scaffold, which is responsible for displaying the app bar or the navigation bar or the canvas that's responsible for displaying the data on the screen. And there is only one required property inside this widget called body. And inside this body, I'll put the same code I wrote before, center, and I'm centering my text. And in this case, you no need to specify the text direction, because by default material app widget come with default LTR. If you are writing Arabic application and want to RTL support, you can easily change the context from LTR to RTL. So if I ask it here, why I can't see the app bar here? I am only seeing the same application, my text, and even if I want to change my text style, I write text style. And also I don't want you to memorize anything, just press on command or control and go to the definition of this class, and you can see all properties that related to this class, and you will find a great documentation here. In text style, I'll go to font size, and inside this font size, I'll change my text size to 40, and we'll come back to our question, why you are not seeing app bar? Because I didn't ask it Flutter or ask it the scaffold widget to display the app bar. How to display the app bar? I'll just go to the property app bar and write the widget or the class, which is app bar. And as we can see here, our app bar appear, and this app bar, you can leave it as empty, but if you want to write a text or title inside it, there is a property called title. You will write your title inside, you wrap your title inside a text widget. I write my app title here, as we can see. When I am pressing save, you can see that the changes appears automatically on the screen without any need to restart my application and start it again. And if you want to display, for example, a drawer or a menu on the left side, you'll go to scaffold and write drawer and use drawer widget here and press Control or Command S, and you can see here the drawer widget. And this drawer widget has a property called child, which hold its children. And most of the time, you will use widget called list view, and we will talk more about it later, inshallah ta'ala. But I need to know some important thing here. As you can see here, Flutter following hierarchical tree, which means there is a widget and there is a children inside this widget. Some widgets hold one element, other widgets can hold many elements. Should I know or memorize which widget? For example, center widget has a property called the child. And if I went to list view widget, I'll find the properties that are responsible for holding more than one element called children. Should I don't want you to memorize anything. Just write CH, and the autocomplete inside your editor will display for you, is it a child or children? As you can see here, I created a list view, but it is still empty. If I wrote a text widget here, for example, menu 1, and press save, I'll find my widget here. And you can see that this menu is scrollable, and there is a bounce, and I can drag and the code like any other menu. When you want to have a scrolling option, you are using list view. I'll try to duplicate this code, menu 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5, and press save, and we will find our application updated without any need to restart the application or go to the menu again and press on the drawer or press on menu icon and change it. One of the most important widget I need you to know, there's a lot of widgets that all the time you will using inside your application, like container, center, text, and list view. For example, if you check the WhatsApp application, you will find it use list view that allow you to scroll your contacts details and scroll the data on your application. Facebook using a list view, Twitter application using the same list view. So list view, one of the important widgets that Flutter provide to you to build scrollable elements of data. And one of the important widgets that may be related to list view, and also you can use it outside list view widget, called, I'll cut this text, and called list tile. List tile is a widget that can hold some data for you and came with pre-made properties for you. For example, here, if I'm using the text widget, there is no way to, there is no option to click on the text and go to another screen, or I had to implement everything from the beginning. And if I use list tile, when I use this tile, I'll go to its definition, I'll find there is a property called title, another property called subtitle, trailing and leading property. Leading is the left part or the main part for my list tile, and trailing or the right side of my list tile. So I'll go back to my list tile, and inside property title, I write my text again, menu 1. And let's see what's the difference. What's the difference here? Maybe you can't see a big difference here between this one and the previous one, but let me add another property called on tab that will enable user gesture detector, which detect the user when user click. As you can see here, there is animation appears here in front of me when I am clicking here. For example, if I went to this on tab and wrote print, and inside this print you clicked me and semicolon, and let's clear the our debug console. If I came here and click, as you can see here, there is a message printed in the debug console, said you are clicked me, the message that we wrote. So this widget now listen or for user interaction, or listen for user what he's doing with the application, and you can write your code. For example, we can write code here for that transferring us from a screen or navigator that allows us to navigate from a screen to another screen. If I want to duplicate this widget, I write comma here and duplicate it again and duplicate it again one last time. As you can see here, let's change it menu 2, and okay, this is menu 2 and this is menu 3, and press save, without any need to rebuild my application again, or even the menu still appear in front of me. I can use this application, and you click me this number 3, and this is number 2, and this is number 1, and press this here. And let's clear our debug console and check. I clicked on the first element, you clicked me number 1, and I clicked on the second element, you clicked me number 2, and I clicked on the third element, and you find that you clicked me number 3. As we can see here, it's very easy to write your Flutter application and see the changes directly on the screen. One of the most important things that people asking about Flutter, sometimes you are finding yourself writing a lot of code, widget inside widget inside widget, and sometimes you are not know where is this widget start and or where is this widget end. It's Flutter team advise you to wrap your code or extract your code inside another widget. What does we mean? For example, if we inside drawer here, we'll extract the whole list view code here to inside another class or another widget. I'll call that my list, or maybe I can make it private. And Dart, if you want to define a private method or a private variable, you will just write underscore. If you need it public, you write it directly without underscore. In Dart, everything is very simple. Private and public. There is no private and protected and public like other language. So I'll write my list view. I'll create a new method or a new widget called my list view, and the compiler warning me that he don't know what my list view means. I'll go down here, and this type of widget will be this method will return widget type. So I write underscore my list view. And right here, if we came here, we'll find that the compiler not displaying data, and I had to return something. I returned the same code that I was writing here inside my list view, and press save. As we can see, nothing changed. But the good thing now, I extracted my list view, or we can name it menu method or menu class. You can create it a separate stateless class in a separate file. I can cut all of this code and put it inside a new file, and we'll talk about it later, inshallah ta'ala. But here I was showing you it's better to extract your code logic inside another widget. Anytime you need to extract some code, just press this help or this light icon, and you will find that extract method, extract widget, extract variable, or center this widget, or add padding. Flutter or Visual Studio Code and any other IDEs like IntelliJ and Android Studio gives you the same functionality that allows you to extract your code. And it's better to extract your code to keep it organized, to make it easily for debugging. And even you can extract the whole scaffold method for here, and we will name it home screen. Or for the example that we will give inshallah ta'ala now in our CodeLab, we will make it random words, and this random words will be stateless widget. Random words, and inside this random words scaffold, let me write that. And here the compiler saying that I don't know my list, what does my list view means, because this widget is inside our the other class. So I'll move it inside my random word class. And as we can see here, there is only one error, because material app, I need to wrap it, close the material app widget. And okay, I wrote random words, maybe I wrote it wrong. So let's save the same application now. appear in front of us. If you are writing or if you are extracting your application for a new class or a new widget, it's better to write the guidelines from Dart team or the guidelines for better programming experience to start your class with capital letter. But if you are writing an internal property or you are writing internal method or internal function inside your application, you will start with small letter. Okay, as you can see here, the same functionality, the same application, but in this case we extracted our or organized our code better for a new class or a new widget. And even you can move all of this code inside a new file. I'll go to a library and I'll create a new folder, for example, SRC, and inside this folder, a lot of people asking about Flutter. What is the default architecture for Flutter? Is Flutter providing MVC or MVM or MVVM, or which architecture, Redux or any other architecture that available for organizing my application? We'll talk about this later, inshallah ta'ala. But for now, the way that I'm creating a folder called SRC source for my application files, and I create a file called home screen.dart. And inside this home screen, I'll paste my application. And here, the compiler saying that there is an error because I didn't imported the material app when I press save. And one very good things happen now. As you can see here, there is an error in our simulator, but our application doesn't crash or doesn't stopped working. It's still working, but the crash happened to the UI. Even if you have a problem or there is a problem with your application, Flutter will do one of two things. The first one, it will display the error for you. Sometimes it will not update the UI until you solve the problem. So what is the problem here? The problem here, we are writing a class called random words, but this class that Flutter can't find it. If I clicked on this icon, it will the editor will help me. Do you want me to import this package? Yes, please import it, and just press save, and you will find our application now came back running with the same functionalities that we are doing. So to recap, what we are saying that we created our application, the entry point for application material. We are importing material. I don't know if we are using widgets library or not, but because I enabled auto import inside my editor, and I'll talk more about the default widgets that I'm using with Flutter later, inshallah ta'ala. But for now, I need to know that I imported the material app, and here there is the entry point for my application, the main method, and it's void because it's not returning anything. And there is run app, which is the method or the function that's responsible for running my application. And I can write any code logic here before my app. For example, checking some security setting or checking user specific or some performance preferences that the user used in his, for example, application language. And I can display run the application or run another application based on that. And the main or the root widget for our application called main application. And our main application, because there is no data here, no need for displaying some data inside this widget, I am using stateless widget. And the root widget I am using for the material applications that I am building called material app. If you are targeting only iOS users, you can use Cupertino app instead of material app. But Google trying to make material app a global system. You will find the material app in iOS behave exactly like iOS, and on Android it will behave and looks like native Android behavior, as we said, with list view, bounce, and when you are using navigation. Here I am importing the default or the required property, which is home, and we said property or method you write it in a small letter, but when you are defining a class or you're defining a widget or another class, it's better to write it in capital letters. And this random words, I'm importing it from another file, as you can see here, and it's extended a stateless widget. Stateless widget, as we said, is this widget has no state, has no data, or we don't care about specific data we need to appear to the user. But if I want to add some functionality or some interaction inside this stateless widget, I want to use inside this widget, I had to use another type of widget, which called stateful widget. Stateful mean data full, data care. There is some data, and this data may be changed during my lifetime application, so I had to change my stateless widget to stateful widget. If there is any shortcut to use a stateful widget, for example, if I pressed on this stateless widget and I'll go to the help or this icon here, I'll find there is an option called convert this widget to a stateful widget. I can convert any stateless widget to stateful widget. So let's see what's the main difference between stateless widget. As you can see here, there is an object or there are class extends stateless widget and has the default. I'm overriding the default method which build, which is responsible for drawing the data on the screen. And this is internal method I created to return the list view for the menu. And I'll go here and try to convert it to a stateful widget. As you can see here, we were using one class only, and now when we converted it to a stateful widget, it's separated to different class. The first class, which is immutable class, and as you can see here, this error, no problem with this error. I just, when I pressed Command S, the error disappeared, because even I changed the widget type, Flutter doesn't crash. It displays the errors on the screen, and I just pressed Command S or Control S for hot reload. As we can see here, we'll come back. The main difference between stateful and stateless: stateless is dataless. She don't care about data, and the render object display this data on the screen. And if they want to change this data, they will destroy the old widget and display another widget on the screen. But stateful widget has two classes. The first class is the same immutable class which is responsible for the stateless widget, and we are overriding the default method inside this class, which is called create state, which is responsible for creating a state for our application. Creating a state, which means that I am telling the render object, please make sure that there is a state for this widget, and this state can be changed during my lifetime of application. And this state class or my state class extend a generic type called state. If you want to know more about generics in Dart or what we are meaning about generics, we already provide a link inside the chat about generics in Dart. I wrote a Medium article about generics in Dart. You can go to this article and you will understand it better, inshallah ta'ala. But for now, because we are running out of time and we need to change to give a lot of data, so we will continue. I want you to understand stateless means dataless. It's only one class, and you have build method. This build method responsible for building all that. But stateful, we have two classes: a mutable class, which is responsible for creating our UI widget, and another class which is extends state, which is a generic type of data and holds the state. When this state changed, the render object will automatically re-render the UI, and Flutter designed it to re-render your application millions of times without no problem, even if you have thousands of objects or thousands of widgets inside your rendering tree. And we were saying rendering tree because I want to remember that Flutter using hierarchical widget system, that there is a root and there is a children inside this root, like a tree, there is a root and there is a children from this root. Till now, it's better to start with stateless widget, because the stateless will not take the same amount of memory and there is no state for it until you find yourself want to display some dynamic data, or you want to add some stateful elements inside your application. You can convert this stateless widget to a stateful widget. And here, till now, I explained almost maybe 80% of the first Flutter CodeLab. If we went to Flutter Dev CodeLabs, if anyone wants, after finishing this video, anyone welcome to finish this CodeLab again. Here we are explaining or exploring write your first Flutter application part 1, and in this one there is an introduction telling about Flutter and how everything works, how to install Flutter and how to set up your environment and how to create your first Flutter application. We already covered all these things and more than what's written here, and now we start with a new thing: how to use another developer package inside our application, or how to use external package inside our application. The file that's responsible for holding the metadata for our application configuration called pubspec.yaml. For example, a lot of technologies use different type of files for describing or holding the metadata for my application. For example, Windows usually use INI for holding data. Some technologies like Android and iOS using XML to holding this data. In Flutter case, using YML, YAML file or YAML way to describe. The most important thing I need to know when you are using Flutter, there is two files: YAML pubspec.yaml, which holds the metadata or the configuration for our application, and there is pubspec.log file, and it's the same methodology or same method other technologies using. For example, in PHP world, there is composer.json and there is composer.log, and in Node.js world, there is npm or packages.json, and there is packages.log file that hold the specific type about the data, specific version that you are using to allows you to share the code between you and other developer easily. Here we are talking about how we are answering the question how to use external package with Flutter. To use external package, you need first to go to the package management system for Flutter. And we said the package management system for Flutter is pub.dev. We'll go to package management system and we'll search for a package called English Words. As you can see here, there is a lot of packages that word came inside it, and we want English Words package, which is a package that gives us random words or can generate any type of words from the dictionary without any need to write it again. So it's very helpful package. What I want to know from here, you can specify I need this package to work only with Flutter, or I need this package can work with Flutter in web and mobile. And as you can see here, there is a number or there is a value. You can resort it based on date or updated time or the score overall. But here, this score is very important. This is your or the package health, which gives you some information about the health of the package you are using. If this package is still maintained or the developer not maintained it well. For example, any package less than 60 or 70% is better to not using it. From 80, 85, 90 is very good, no problem with using it. And as we can see here, because this is very famous package that Flutter using in its CodeLab, and it maintained, last update was in November, but it's very well maintained and compatible with the latest version of Dart and Flutter. So it's getting the value of 100. And if you want to install it, go to the installing, and it will asking you, go to your pubspec.yaml file and copy this text. And if we came back to our CodeLab, I will see, we'll find the same text written here, but it's better to bring it from the package management. Sometimes this CodeLab not updated. Usually, you will find another version or a new version, and also you can follow the CodeLab to follow the same version that Flutter using. I'll go back to my application inside pubspec.yaml file. I'll go to for Flutter dependency, and I'll paste this package inside it. Till now, I didn't press Control S or Command S. If I press Control S, Flutter will start running a terminal command called Flutter packages get. It will go to the package management system and install, download this package for me. And as you can see here, there is an option or help from the editor. There is a package responsible for that. We'll talk about it later, that I can write any package and it will automatically, when I press on this link, it will go to the pubspec, the pub.dev or pub.dart lang. It's not updated yet with the new URL, but it will display the same result that I am getting when I am using. I think my connection, my connection, I wish my streaming is good and I am still streaming in high quality. Please write in all times. Okay. Sorry, I was checking the live chat. I think it's not better to check any chat messages now. We came back here, and as you can see here, one of the greatest features about Flutter, or one of the best things that I love about Flutter, even if you are using UI button or UI element on the screen to do something, Flutter behind the scenes are calling a command line method or a command line command that doing this job. What's good about this thing? Because Flutter, from continuous integration and continuous delivery perspective, Flutter very good. Exactly like if we take example, and sorry for about that, but I need to explain the idea more. If we take Windows or the operating system, Microsoft Windows, for example, the kernel itself and the user interface, the UI, are merged together. For example, there is a lot of feature you can use through the UI that not available inside PowerShell or not available inside the command prompt method, because the kernel is merged with the UI and not provided the same functionality. But in Linux system or Mac system case, most of the commands you are doing from the GUI or from the user interface, you will find it available in the terminal. And Flutter using the same approach. Everything you are using through an IDE, even if you want to develop your application inside the terminal, you can do that, and you can run your application by writing Flutter run, and you will write the platform you need to run your application, run iOS or run Android, and even you can run start the emulator or simulator for Android or iOS. Everything you can write it. You can do it. You do the same from command line. And now, when we added this package and when we pressed Command S, it said exit code 0, which means there is no errors with our application. One of the most important mistakes for beginners when they started with using YAML file, if I went to the file and I made a small space here, and when I am, let me clear this widget, and I'll press Command S or Control S, as you can see here, thanks for Visual Studio Code, it's warning me and said there is invalid schema. I can't run your command. And even we can see here Flutter, when Flutter tried to run Flutter packages get, it gives me an error. Before it was giving me exit code 0. And here what I want to know, YAML is space sensitive. It's sensitive for spaces. So make sure the indentation of your things that you are writing are correct, and you're indenting the property or the things you are writing with the correct order. Here, as we can see, Flutter and the dependency package that Flutter depends on the same level. When I'll press save, it will start again to run the command. And as we can see here, it gives me exit code 0, which means that there is no problem with my application. And as we can see here, we imported an external package from the pub.dev package management system and installed it locally inside our project. And now no need to use pubspec again. We'll go back to our application and start to import this package or use this package. How to import this package inside our application? Exactly like we importing other things. I write import, and please use the autocomplete your application. Autocomplete will save your time, will save you from a lot of mistakes that you can do. I'll press tab and it will ask me what you want to import. I'll just write eng, and because I already installed English words package inside my application, Flutter is very smart and the editor is very smart, because Dart is a static analysis language and the editor can easily understand my code well. So it suggests to me, do you want to include or import the English word library? I'll press tab and it imported my library. There is one important note here. As you can see here, there is a green line under my library. What's green line mean? Green line means that I didn't use something. If I defined a variable and didn't use it, there will be a green line appear under it. If I imported an library and didn't use it, the editor will warn me with a green, very beautiful green line that said, please, you imported this library and you didn't use that inside your code. But I don't want you to worry about this error, because as we said, Dart has tree shaking. Even if you didn't use this imported package, Dart will automatically removing this package when you are compiling your package to the native code. So how to use this package, or how to, we'll go to back the CodeLab and we will see how to use this package. I'll go to the browser again and let's go to the next step. We imported, or we added English words package inside our pubspec.yaml file, and we installed it locally. And now we imported it. We already finished this step, and we imported it inside our application. And now we want to use it, and there is a variable. We are defining final variable inside our application. And here we are using final because we are using stateless widget. Let's try to use the same final. We can use this final with a stateful widget, but I'll explain more inshallah ta'ala. But here we are defining a variable. This variable using the word pair object, which inside our English words library, and it's generating a random word for us. Let's write it inside we can define it as a global here, and it's better to define it inside our application. As you can see here, word pair, there is a green line because this variable, we defined it and didn't use it inside our application. Let's use it again inside our application. We here center, and we will change this text, my static text, my first Flutter application, to word pair. But there is a problem and there is an error here. It's saying that this is an object, and you are displaying. I am expecting that a string value will come inside this text widget. So I want to, any Java developer or any developer in other static language type knows that there is a method called toString. When I press save, it will give me a random word. If I press hot reload or hot restart, you are seeing that this word is changing every time I am pressing refresh. For example, if I change the font size from 40 to 50, with any change, it will generate a random value for me. And here, as you can see here, I used final inside stateful widget. What's the difference between final and constant and variable? For example, I can use var here, and when I'm using var, it will give me the same result. What's the difference between var and final and constant? Final, it's using lazy loading for the object. It will not instantiate the object until I'm using it. And the first value will be inside this variable will be the final value for it. I will not able to change it during the lifetime of my widget. If I want to change it, I had to destroy the whole widget and rebuild it again with a new value. I don't want to explain more because I want to stick with the CodeLab because it will be easier for anyone are following or are seeing our video later, inshallah ta'ala. He can do the same with the CodeLab. So here now, what I did, I need to recover or recap things that I am doing. I installed a package called English Words, and I added it to my metadata file. And then after that, I imported this package and I defined variable. And here, it's better when you are using stateless widget and you are using final. And the IDE itself will force you or will set you use the stateless widget without using final because stateless has no state. But here, even if I used variable, if I am using, maybe we can give example because I changed this one to stateful. But if I am using stateless here, they will find the editor complain if I didn't use the final word for defining my application. And after that, defining my variable, I am passing this variable to my text widget, as you can see here. Word pair dot string. If I want to, for example, to use as or to uppercase, for example, to uppercase, I press to uppercase, will find my word or my object. It changed it to uppercase. And now we will move to another important, very important widget. We already covered this part. We will change it from stateless to stateful, and we said here that there is in stateful widget case there is a state which is generic type, and if you want to know more about generics in Dart, go to the URL that we provided in chat, and there is the widget, the main widget, which is a stateful immutable widget, which is responsible for displaying our data, and we already finished this type. And here, maybe the mistake, the practice that I was writing here, if I came back to word pair, I said I need this word pair variable to be its type from word pair class or word pair object, and we already finished that. And this this widget, my app calling random words, and we already finished all this part. And now we will go to one of the most important widgets that you will use during your application or during your application lifetime, which is list view widget. And we already gave an example about list view, I think, inside our menu here. We build our drawer, and inside this our drawer, we already wrote list view. But I need to check what's the difference between the list view I used to display my menu and the list view that we will using when we are displaying data inside this widget. So let's get started. And here I named this is my list view. So okay, first there is two variables we need to define. The first one, final variable, which its type of word pair and list of words. That creating an private variable which contains empty list of word pair object. So I'll copy this 2 lines, and I'll go to, and you can find here, we defined this one inside the state widget directly, not inside the build method, because we need it to be available inside any other widgets that inside this class. So I'll come here and copy and paste the word. I am following the CodeLab guidelines because it will be easier for you to do the same with me. And as you can see here, we are defining a variable. Its type is text style, and it's constant because it will not change, and it holds a widget, text style widget, and holds only, we are defining the font size to be 18. And here the editor complaining about these 2 variable because I didn't use these variables, but we will use it inshallah ta'ala now. And here we are defining a new private method inside our random words class, exactly the same that we defined for our list view. As you can see here, I'll take it, copy, and paste it here inside my class. As you can see here, there is an error, and there is a problem that it's saying that there is a problem here. What's the problem here? That there is another private method available inside my application, but Flutter or Dart or the editor don't know anything about it. Why we are getting this error? We are getting this error because there is no private method called build row. So we'll go back to our CodeLab guidelines, and we will copy this method and come back again and paste it here. And as you can see here, the error disappears. And if we came to our application, we will not find nothing changed. Why? I already wrote another method, and this methods render list view, and this list view are generating random words, and every time I am scrolling, when I am reaching the end, it will take another 10 words and display it on the screen. But the question now, why we are not seeing anything on the screen? Because I didn't ask Flutter to do that. How can I ask it? I'll go to the scaffold widget and say, instead of displaying this center widget and displaying this text, I'll remove all of this code, and I'll ask it to display or to execute this build method. As you can see here, just when I pressed Command S or Control S, we can now have a full auto dynamic list. When I am scrolling here, I can find that every time when I'm scrolling. And as you can see here, there is a lot of code. Maybe you can remove it. For example, let me remove first this this is comments, and now to make our code smaller. Here we are checking if it odd number, and I am putting this line, this divider. If I remove this this code, as we can see here, it will our UI will only change it, but this is not very important. We can leave it or we can remove it. And as you can see here, we'll come back to the main questions that I asked. What's the difference between the list view I built here? We are using something called named constructor. Another constructor in Dart, if you want to create multiple constructor inside class, there is something called named constructor, and this named constructor called builder. If I don't know anything about the named constructor inside list view, just press Control or Command, and you will find everything you need, and you will find all constructor inside available, or any properties inside available for you inside this list view. There is named constructor called list view separated, and there is another named constructor called custom. But here, if I came back to my code, the list view that I built, I am using the default constructor for the list view, which allows me to put some data directly inside it. But in Flutter case, they build a pre-made constructor for you that helps you to display dynamic data without any need to write everything inside it. And if we came back to our named constructor, it's called builder, which has or takes two important widgets, or very important widgets that we need: item builder and item count. I'm not specifying here item count because I'm using lazy loading. When I am scrolling here, I am checking here. If I scrolled at the end of the index, or for example, if I printed here, let me display the debug console and clear this one. And if I went here and said print, and I printed the index of the list tile I am here. If I scroll here, check, see, this is the index number 132, 134, etc. And here I am checking if this index equal or more than my list value. I need to go to the word per object and generate another 10 words to generate more words. And here, as I don't want anyone who's just started with Flutter to get lost with me. Sorry about that. I'll stick with the example. And now we are using named constructor called builder, which has item builder, and I can specify another object called item count, and I can specify the count. For example, when I am pressing here, I can specify if I want to display one item or 4 items or 5 items. And here it's not displaying because I am dividing this index or items on 2. For that reason, we are seeing that it's displaying like that. But we are not providing the item count here because I'm using lazy loading. And I need to know that one of the most important widgets that related, let me comment this line, and this is good to check the difference. The default, if you need to add a comment for your application and want the debugger or the IDE understand, or the auto-generate documentation application, Flutter uses this 3 forward slash letters to writing any application. For example, if I want to list view, I'll find Flutter uses this 3. But I can use 2, but the auto-generate tools that will generate documentation for your code will not understand that. This is normal, simple comment, but if I need to transfer it allows the editors or allows the auto-generate application to understand it better, it's better to use this 3 forward slash. And now I'm using list builder, and this item builder property take context which explain to Flutter which page I am using and where I am and what data I am holding, and take an index or I can define it as this integer value index or I, anything I want, no problem. And this integer value holds the index of the elements that appear on the screen. And I am doing that because I want to display every time. It will automatically loop through my word per object and display every element based on the index that I wrote. And the second important widget I need you to know or understand when you are using list view is list style. It's very related to list view, and you will see list style most of the time when you are using list view. But the good thing about list style, it's a pre-made widget that gives you a lot of pre-made functionalities that allows you. For example, if I need to activate the clickable, I want to click of any element on the screen, and when I am clicking, let me display the console. And we will check maybe with this problem because maybe unused variable, but this is just normal warnings. This is not error. And let me go to back the back console and clear it. As you can see here, I want to activate on tab option. So I'll go here and on tab. When I am pressing of any element, I'll try to print the element that I'm clicking. What's the name for the variable that holds the element I'm using? It's called pair. So I said pair, and this pair is object. So I need to change it to string first. And when I am pressing, let's go here. When I press this letter, we can find that it appears in front of us in the console. And when I pressed here, I find that these words appear in front of me. Not only that, let's check our other properties that are available inside list tile. For example, if you want to leading icon, I'll use a pre-made widget called circle avatar. And inside this circle avatar, inside its child, I'll write a text. And this text, I write pair dot toString to write, to display the same word that appear in the same item appear in list tile on the left side on the leading icon, but I want the first letter, so it's very easy to use substring method. Just press dot and the autocomplete in Dart is very powerful, will help you. Now I am taking only the first letter of this word and displaying it inside this circle avatar, and this circle avatar has a great feature that allows you to display circle avatar on the screen. And if I want to change it to the uppercase, I'll press save, and you will find it. We want to change uppercase, and it's very, very important note here: don't forget to write comma. When I write comma here, if I press Command S, see what's the difference before when I'm not using comma, and when I'm using comma, we will find that our code now came to a new line, and there is a difference between the ending and the start of our widget. And here we can write style for this letter. For example, we'll use text style. I think I'm running out of time. I need to give some time for question to answer question. Maybe last 10 minutes, inshallah ta'ala. But here, for example, I want to change the color. I'll choose the color property, and there is a static class inside Flutter called colors. I can use, for example, purple, the best color that girls preferred. So when I press save, as you can see here, purple appear, but I think the color is not that good. We can change its size, font size, and make it 40, and press save. As you can see, 40 is a little bit big, so let's change it to 30. As you can see here, list tile came with pre-made properties. For example, sorry, I pressed the command and the shift at the same time. But if I press control and press on list tile, I'll find all the properties that I want to know about this widget without any need to check the online documentation. And this is what's very good, or what's great about Flutter. Flutter engineers put a lot of efforts allows you to get the whole information you need, even without any need to check the online documentation. And even for the online documentation, we'll talk about it at the last minutes, inshallah ta'ala. But you have a great documentation inside the code, and you have a very good documentation inside the website, inside Flutter Docs. So as we already used leading and we used title, let's use, for example, subtitle. I'll come here and subtitle, and I write some text here. This is my subtitle, and press save. As you can see, sometimes when you are using WhatsApp, you will find this icon or circle avatar display the avatar of the user, and here username, and here his status, latest status, or something else. So list tile provide this functionality for you for free. And for example, if you want to use the trailing icon, another icon, I can use icon class. And remember, what's the difference between icon with a capital letter or this with a small letter? This is a property, and this is class. And this is widget, a class called icon. And inside this icon, there is another static a class called icons that gives me the material design icons for free. For example, I need the favorite icon. When I press Command S, as you can see here, or Control S if you are using Windows, the heart icon appear. If I open the debug console again, if I press this word, as you can see, because we already wrote here the logic of our applications, that when we when the user clicks on the application, I want to print here, as you can see here, I already wrote a print the element on the screen. And one of the great things about Flutter, this language designed for using or describing the UI very easy. For example, here I need to check if this word added to favorite or not, or I need to change this favorite icon from its color. I can write comma here. Remember, don't forget to write comma. When I press save, I'll find that it's now better. And now I want to change this icon color from this gray color to red, for example. I'll choose red, and as we can see here, it's red. I can write a condition here. For example, here I'm writing true, that which means that the condition is true. But here you can write any internal method, and inside this method you are doing some logic, bringing some data for database, and returning some value true or false. I'm saying that the color, if it's true, please make it red, but if it's false, please make it green, for example. And as you can see here, it's still displaying red because I'm using true. But if I changed it to false, as you can see here, the icon will change to green. So Dart from the beginning designed it to use declarative UI, and it's very powerful language, specifically after Dart 2.1 and Dart 2.2 and Dart 2.3, a lot of great features that save your time and allows you to write a very good code, very small amount of words inside your code. You can write any write conditions here, and as you can see, we already wrote an application. You can write this application in less than 5 minutes, I think. You will not get this same experience with any other tools. And I'll check the CodeLab. I think we already finished the first CodeLab. And I'll stop here because there is a lot of important information. But you are free to go to the second part and finish it also. Just follow Flutter CodeLabs is very good. You can go to this CodeLabs from two ways: developers, codelabs.developers.google.com, or go to flutter.dev docs and CodeLabs, and you will find the CodeLabs. But there is a difference between CodeLabs, there, codelabs.google, codelabs.google. There is some CodeLabs, especially for Flutter, bed and pad. Sorry for wrong pronunciation. Flutter bed is a new feature that Flutter team are working on it now. It allows you to run Flutter inside the browser. No need to install Flutter, or no need to install everything to know Flutter. You can run your code inside the Flutter inside the browser directly, thanks for Flutter Web project that allows us to run Flutter code directly on the screen. This Flutter bed still not installed on CodeLabs, so it's better till now. I think we will ask CodeLabs team, because this CodeLabs not only for Flutter, for anything else. Maybe we can ask them to support Flutter bed, which is new, still new, and Dart bed version 2. As you can see here, you can run Flutter application inside the browser and see the result without any need to install Flutter. And this is very good feature. And I know that we can use it inside our documentation. inside Flutter documentation, or you will find we can generate an live online example about Flutter. So to go back, Flutter Dev Docs CodeLabs, and we already finished this first CodeLab, and we already talked about more information about more than it's already in this CodeLab. We talked about drawer and navigation, how to use the left menu, and what's the difference between the default constructor for list view and the named constructor list view that builder. Feel free to finish this application and send it to me in Twitter. My Twitter handle is DahabDev at Twitter, and DahabDev everywhere. And feel free also, I'll be happy if you finish the second CodeLab, and it's very easy to understand and to learn. And now we will cover some important things people asking about Flutter. Here, if you want to check material design, when I talked about material design, and during this remain 5 minutes, feel free please to ask any question. And thanks for my brother Omran for supporting me during this live show and answering your question. Thanks to Mais, and I think Nawal also, and everyone here is answering question. Here, if you want to know more about Flutter, if you are a designer or developer, just check material.io, and here Apple principle for iOS, and you will find the same design or same principle for Mac OS or TV OS or Watch OS, as I said. Let's close this one. I prefer to use Flutter CodeLab better than the CodeLabs that are available on codelabs.developers.google.com. And here pub.dev, the package management system for Flutter. And you are free to contact me anytime on Twitter. I don't prefer to use Facebook or Instagram. I am a little bit lazy checking these applications because it's wasting my time. So you can, even if you want to send a private message to me on Twitter, no need to follow me to send me a private message. And anytime, I already uploaded this talk slides on this URL, and I think we already posted it on the chat. Inshallah ta'ala, you can check it anytime. And here, the most important questions I try to answer on the next 5 minutes. What is the next step, or how can I start learning Flutter? As I said, the theoretical introduction, the presentations that are the slides I give, I think it's a good introduction. It's better to use. Some cases, if you are talking about Flutter now and you are saying Flutter is very good, what's the problems or what's the cons of using Flutter? If there is some cases that I can't use Flutter on it, yes, there is some cases Flutter will not good for you. For example, remember that Flutter is one of the best frameworks for building UI application. Flutter will not help you too much if you are heavily using hardware devices inside the mobile. For example, if you want to build an application like all-in-one application that's responsible for clearing your phone memory or clearing running application, Flutter will not get good in this case. Flutter very good for building UI. Flutter very good if you want to follow the default native UI for your application, or Cupertino or material design, or even, for example, like Adobe or any big companies have its own unique identity and want to build custom UI for Flutter. Flutter is very good for us. Flutter will give you a great experience and will power your application with productivity, already pre-made widgets. If you want, you need to check the widgets that available Flutter. After that, and the steps now we'll see, I'll try to cover in my talk. The first step, you need to check to install Flutter, and after installing Flutter, please run Flutter Doctor to make sure everything is good. And after listening to our slide, there is a lot of good resources on YouTube. And even if you asked me, okay, I'm sorry, I was afraid to close the Chrome. If you asked me how to learn Flutter, just right now, learn Dart or learn Flutter. Some people asking me, are Flutter bad in Dart? Okay, let me first answering the questions that appear on in the chat, and then I can answer the most important question about Flutter. The last question, I think Noel asked, are Flutter bad and Dart Dev tool written in Dart? Yes. The answer is yes, and it's powered by Dart 2GS compiler, which allows us to compile any Dart code to JavaScript. Thanks for Dart team, and thanks for Flutter team for embedding the Dart bed that already will be available for Dart language also. You can, and what's already available from the beginning, but now we have Dart pad version 2, which helps Flutter to run Flutter code in browser without any need to install. So a lot of people asking me, I don't know anything about Flutter or mobile development. Should I go and learn native development first, and after that come back and learn Flutter? My answer, I prefer no. Start with Flutter, and you will gain, or after that you can learn some native tricks. You will need some native experience to know how to, let me decrease font size now. I think no need to for big font size. Sometimes you will need to write specific platform code, for example, Kotlin or Java code or Swift code. So start with Flutter. Flutter is very easy to learn, especially, and also Flutter documentation. There is a Flutter documentation that using the previous knowledge that you know about Flutter. There is a Flutter guide for React Native user, Flutter for iOS developer, Flutter for Android developer, Flutter for web developers, and Flutter for Xamarin developer. No matter whatever experience you have before, even if you don't have any experience about Flutter, Flutter is very good start for you. And I advise you to know more little bit about Dart. And one of the best courses available for free on YouTube. This course, just write learn Dart. You can start with it, and you will find a playlist, maybe 42 videos, every video for 3 or 5 minutes. Even if you don't know anything about programming, you in less than 1 week, it depends on how much time you are spending every day on Flutter, you can learn everything about Flutter. And also the same user, he already created another playlist for Flutter. You can find Flutter bit. And sorry, because I didn't mention the most important channel you can find on the YouTube, Flutter Dev. This is our new Flutter channel, Flutter Dev on YouTube. YouTube Flutter Dev, and you will find a very good playlist here. There is a playlist called Widget of the Week, and this widget every week Flutter team gives you a small introduction and very good introduction about the most important widgets about Flutter. It's very good. It's very important to listen to this playlist. And this is a boring show, exactly like what we are doing now. It's a live show, no cut, no things that hidden, everything. Any mistakes happen, that exactly when I am writing my application, it will find it, and it will show you that even Google developers makes mistake. Any developer makes mistake. Sometimes you are not focusing. It's normal. Don't panic. Even if you don't know anything about programming, Dart and Flutter very good for you. If you want to, my channel on YouTube is Dart. Sorry, Dart. I used to say Dart and Flutter. My channel YouTube is Dahab IT. I'll try to download this the video from GDG MENA. And upload it in my Flutter. You are welcome. You are welcome to join my channel. I already covered some of these I'm covering user question about Flutter, and sometimes I'm uploading some workshops that I am giving in Arabic, and I create another playlist for English user. So if you are speaking Arabic or English, you are welcome to join my channel. And I think channel GDG Mina, or as me and my brother Umran Minna all the time saying GDG Minna, you are welcome to subscribe in GDG Mina channel anytime. So let's come back to answer the same question. Start with Dart. Know more about understand Dart, and you will find another course called Flutter. The best friend for you is Flutter Dev channel. You will find widgets of the week, Flutter, and with a boring show, and you will find a lot of other playlists. And let me check the questions that are available on the screen. Okay, what about dealing with resources like camera and voice? Flutter has pre-made widgets already allows you to communicate with this device. Flutter saved your life and saved your time and provide you a pre-made widget to communicate with camera or Bluetooth or anything. But the question is, if I want to communicate with another device that not provided by Flutter by default, what I should use? You can write native code inside Flutter. You can write native code inside your application, Java, or you had to add this case, you will duplicate your code inside the iOS folder and Android folder through platform channels that we explained before. And through these platform channels, you can communicate between the Dart code and the native code that you're written for a specific one. And the second one, or even to make an application that changes sometimes user device, like app that has images gallery or the button that will change device wallpaper. As I said, if you will not find the best friend for you, you need to check pub.dev first. I am sure that you will find a lot of important widgets that saves your time. Widget about making a slider, or widget that's anything you need, just first search here. And if you didn't find your widget here, search on Google. And if you didn't find that on Google, you can write your custom native code inside Android folder and inside iOS folder. Thanks everyone. I think now we executed. It's now exactly 7.5 because we took 5 minutes delay when my connection disconnected. I'd like to thank everyone watching me now, and inshallah ta'ala, maybe we can make another video that covering the second part. And also, you are welcome anytime to join my channel or follow my account or contacting me or Umran. You can contact me on Twitter, DahhabDev, and you contact my brother Umran. Umranik also everywhere, Umranik at Twitter. And also our MENA region leader for the DevRel program in the Middle East, Salim Abed. I think it's like this. Please contact us anytime. And if you are interested in the Arabic version of this study jam, we will make the same version, inshallah ta'ala, after 2 days in Arabic. And I'll also provide a Google Assistant study jam for Google Assistant. Thanks everyone, and thanks for attending my session. And sorry if there is some mistakes I did during my first time ever study jam on YouTube. And if there is any questions that I didn't answer, we can cover it later, inshallah ta'ala, and we can send the email for everyone. Thanks everyone, and see you soon, inshallah ta'ala. I think I can stop broadcasting from here.